Okay, so welcome to panel 2, and this is called The Voice of Vote, and this is exploring the actual gaining the vote, and that's the first part of this section. What's really interesting about this is that in our democracy, everybody really wasn't giving a chance to vote. The people who were allowed to vote really were propertied men only, and so through our history, we have evolved to include all people as the Constitution is written, because otherwise, then it's just the voice of some making decisions for some. So instead of all of us having a chance to vote. Okay, so what's really cool about this gaining of the vote is we gained independence in 1776, but the process of setting up the government and making it equal and more equal for those who lived here was part of that process. So it took until 1850 for all men to be able to vote, not just the men who had property, but they expanded it to that. It wasn't until 1870 that African American men were given that opportunity to vote. And that was 5 years after slavery ended. And then it would take until 1920 for women to be given that right to vote. We just celebrated that last year, the 100th anniversary of the right for women to vote. Part of becoming a more perfect union is what was talked about in the Declaration of Independence. And so it's a process, and we're not done with the process. So that's where amendments come into play. So that's what this section is about. Be sure you look through all of it. There's lots of great interactive pieces. Okay, so this is the second side of the Voices and Votes section. And so what it looks at is once that different groups got that right to vote, then it became a question of, well, they could vote, but would they vote? And how you could get them to get that right to vote. But then there also became ways to take away the power of that people group to be able to vote. So in 1890, for instance, there was a poll tax that was placed on African American people, so that unless you paid the poll tax, you couldn't vote. So some critical issues have sprung way back from the beginning of our institution to figure out how to make this a more equitable space for everyone to be. Okay, be sure you check out, there is a wonderful video about the first time people had that opportunity to vote. And think about, some of you are youngsters that are going to be going through this tour, but some of you will be adults. And so think about that opportunity to get to vote. For you who are younger, when will it be that you get to vote? How much longer will that be? But also, think about this. John Lewis, the senator who recently passed, he said in 2016, "The vote is precious. It is the most powerful nonviolent tool that we have in a democratic society, and we must use it." So there are some current events that are happening in ways to suppress the vote that's going on throughout our country now. So be sure you check that out and check out some of the ways that through our history that the opportunity to vote has been actually restricted by some legislation in different states.